something that PhDs and postdocs who come to meet with me always ask immediately. Well, what can I do? What can I do now that I've got this PhD or I've got this degree in X or Y? Where do I start? Right. So I think, and we'll show you some resources, by the way, on these slides just in a minute or two. So anything I mention as a website or specific resources you can go to, they will be showing up in a slide or two. But what I want you to do is sort of take a 30,000-foot view and say, wait, what do I already know? Right? You are not the first person to have a degree in whatever you have. There are others who have gone before you. You have peers. You have people around you who can help maybe point you down some paths. So think about what you might already know about career options for yourself, and especially, who do you already know? I often ask PhDs and postdocs, like, are you the only one in your lab if they're in science? Are you the only one in your department? Usually not. They'll have other people that they can reference and think about where those people have gone. Now, just because others have gone down a path does not mean that it's the path for you, but it's a good place to start. All right. And so don't just read about career paths that are open to you online, because they may sound great written about on a website or in a career guide. But talking to people, which we'll get to shortly, really gives you sort of the inside scoop on what this career might be like. So a lot of PhDs will say, oh, management consulting sounds fantastic to me, but they might not realize the reality of working, 80-plus hour weeks or traveling 5 days out of 7. So I wanted to show you some specific options, and I cannot speak highly enough about any professional societies that you belong to. As I've said, roles like mine have been created across the United States. It's exploding for universities to have a staff member or an academic staff member of some kind focused on helping researchers. But professional societies as well are creating resources for you in your discipline. So if you have not already gone to the website of whatever society whether you belong to it or not, you can still access some of the resources online. There might be a journal that's published that can help you figure out what society it might be. Here are a few more, though. AAAS, broadly, the National Institutes of Health. The My IDP is a fantastic resource if you have not accessed it already. It's on Science Careers, but all you have to do is literally Google My IDP, and you will be led to this tool, which will help you assess your skills. And this is for scientists, by the way, and maybe potential career paths that might go from there. I also really like BioCareers for scientists in terms of determining what paths might be available to you. And Versatile PhD is fantastic. It serves both humanities and social scientists, as well as STEM researchers. And that is a community. Versatile PhD is for those who are exploring careers beyond academia in particular. Something I want to point out right now, too, is that I really don't like the phrase alternative careers. I believe that right now academia, unfortunately, is the alternative career because only about 15% of PhDs are going to end up with a tenure track job. So you can have a career in academia. You can have a career in any number of other paths. You can have even a hybrid kind of career. But that's something I want to point out, that I'm not a big fan of the phrase alternative career because all careers, I think, are good. Okay, also, with knowing what your options might be, here's some more resources for you. Just note that I pointed out ASBMB, the American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology Careers. There may be similar organizations that are perhaps more international focused. My base right now is in the United States, so a lot of the resources that I'm pointing out are U.S. based. But again, these associations and societies have international membership and are generally open to people to look at the career resources, whether they're a member or not. And you can also look up for the equivalent, like I think about the American Educational Research Association has their equivalent, the British Educational Research Association. So you guys are researchers. You can, use your brains to figure out that if these resources are good, there might be similar resources in the space. Okay, moving along, I want to talk a little bit about the market. So once you have, and again, I'm sort of glossing over this, like understanding your options is a process that might take you a week or two, maybe even a month or two to explore and figure out maybe there are 2 or 3 paths that are of interest to you. But once you think I'm interested in this career area, you'll need to understand what the possibility is of getting a job in that area. So I think we've talked about the fact that many of you are showing the plan of an academic path and other. I've talked about the competitiveness of looking for a tenure track position. The currency of an academic job search, the money that's going to be paid to get you a job as an academic is going to be your publications. And so there's really not a lot you can do about that at this point if you don't have a lot of publications. You then might need to explore other options. So I'm just saying there's nothing I can do to change the fact that, to be hired for a tenure track role, generally your publications are the first thing that's looked at. So at this point then you can think, well, where are other people who have the same degree or my background? Where are they working? It might be only in academia, but I don't think that is actually possible in this day and age. I think that not everyone can go into academia, so there are going to be other people filling other roles around the world. So your personal choices, I think, are going to factor into this as well. So let me talk to you a little bit about knowing yourself. And that's really important because, like I said before, giving the example about management consulting, you may think that it sounds great to solve big picture problems, but if you don't like travel or competitiveness or working long hours, then that work environment's not going to be for you. I will point out a fantastic speaker, author, Peter Fisk. Maybe some of you have had the chance to hear him. He keynotes sometimes at large organizations around the world. You can get his book, Put Your Science to Work. Again, this focuses on scientists, but his advice is great for PhDs from all disciplines to think about the fact that as a researcher, you have skills that you have gained from simply doing your research work. And those skills can be valued in many industries and occupations. So you have skills, both your discipline-specific skills and your transferable skills, or the skills like writing or thinking or researching that could actually transfer to a number of environments. Then think about the environment. What is important to you about a work environment and the culture? Do you like working by yourself? Do you like working in a team? Do you like an international aspect? Do you like a steady paycheck? Do you like temporary work or flexibility or project-based things? Do you like being a leader? Do you like being a second in command? And do you have priorities about children and the kind of schools they go to, which might then dictate the kind of place that you live? Is it important to you to make a lot of money? And there's nothing wrong with that. But these are all things that you need to think about as you're planning your next step. And keep in mind, too, that planning a next step can happen multiple times during your life and your career. Heather and I both talked about the unplanned things that have come up for us in our own careers. And for all of you, I mean, there's literally nobody I know who has stayed in the same job and been perfectly happy for 45 years. It just does not happen anymore. So knowing yourself and knowing the things that are important to you can really help when a transition point comes up before you make a decision. And I want to point out to you just a few specific resources that can help you situate yourself and understand what those values, choices, and priorities may be. Again, I'm going to send you back to the IDP, the My IDP, the Individual Development Plan on AAAS Science Careers. It's fantastic. Some of you may have heard and maybe already taken the Myers-Briggs Type Inventory. Best place to take it is with someone who's licensed, but it does cost money. So there's one fairly decent free site that I've listed here. I love, for researchers, the Gallup Strengths Finder. You have to buy a book, get an access code, or get an ebook and take this online. But what you'll come up with are 5 words that are sort of your innate talents, things that you are just naturally very good at that can help you understand yourself and the things you're good at. If you're an achiever, maybe someone who always likes to get things done, or you're analytical, you really like to assess problems, Or in my case, one of my strengths is positivity, right? Which I didn't think could necessarily take you forward in the job market, but actually it does. A lot of my job is helping reassure or encourage researchers about achieving their goals. Why do you think I asked you that question in the poll about how confident do you think you'll be in achieving your goals? So again, the Strengths Finder is fantastic. SkillScan is an activity that I use often with PhDs and have used at the universities I've worked at. You can access it yourself individually online. It's a card sort activity where you can actually look at your tangible, transferable skills. None of these, except for my IDP, are made for researchers necessarily, but they are all tools that I have found over the years work really well with that population. The Berkman, expensive, but it's an incredible way to get an inner look at yourself and how you operate, your preferences, how you think, how you react in stressful situations. It's pretty expensive. I don't use it a lot with researchers, but it's out there. If you have access to one-on-one career advising, I highly recommend it. So if you're currently affiliated with a university, find out if there's someone there who works with researchers who might be able to offer you even one career advising appointment. Or you can also find career counselors around the world. Versatile PhD is great, by the way, to try and find people around the world who specialize in career advising for researchers. And my last point, which could be a whole webinar in itself, is getting the opportunity to go out there and do something and experience some type of career activity, right? So I hate the word internship because it conveys sort of a work experience formality of 3 months and getting paid and working in a law firm or something like that. It doesn't have to be that kind of a structured activity. It can be going to shadow someone in a job for an afternoon. It can be undertaking a project for someone or some slight consulting opportunity. It doesn't have to be paid. It can even be going out and having a chat with someone in a career that is of interest to you, or at a university or institution or organization that is of interest to you. They're very powerful, though, getting a chance to see something from the inside, even if it's just a little glimpse. So I'm going to move now into talking about the strategy once you've determined what you're interested in, what paths might be interesting to you, and how to think about your own strengths or your own skills, your own choices about what's important to you. And then your job search strategy is where taking action happens. And remember, at the very beginning, I said there's this career development process. Now, many researchers, many people, let's be honest, jump right to taking action. It's jumping in and looking at job postings on Craigslist or huge job boards and then applying for jobs randomly and not getting any response, because I think it's just human nature. We want to do something. Or you hear from a friend or a peer like, oh, well, this is what PhDs do, or this is what researchers do. I want to work in industry, and I'm putting that in air quotes. Don't just jump in. Please do a little bit of that thinking before you jump in, but eventually you will have to jump in. And when it's time to take action, if you've done some pre-preparation, I think you'll be better prepared. So I talked about having a few fields that you can focus on. And when you take action, that makes life a lot easier rather than sort of ricocheting all over the board and applying for a job in this and a job in that and not having really a clear path and purpose. And again, I will say that conducting informational chats is one of the most powerful ways to not only learn about your options, but potentially have someone say, and by the way, we have a job opening, or there will be a position posted in my organization or department or institution in the next 6 months. And that gives you sort of inside information.